Hi, everybody, and welcome to a new edition of Newsmakers. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, October 11th, 25 days until the election, with all of us living with existential dread. In any case, we are joined by our all-star panel of top local journalists: Nick Welsh, executive editor of the Santa Barbara Independent; Josh Molina, man of many hats and host of the popular Joe Rogan-like Santa Barbara Talks podcast; and Callie Fausey, staff writer for the Independent, and Margaux Lovely, staff writer for the Independent. Thank you all for joining us. Margaux, let me start with you. You had the cover last week of the Indy with your colleague Ryan P. Cruz about State Street, a grand view, the people shaping Santa Barbara State Street. So you went kind of behind the scenes to profile a lot of people who have been involved in this. And it was a pretty upbeat piece, which of course annoyed me to no end. But what was your takeaway about how we're doing on State Street? You know, how things are. Were you optimistic, pessimistic, or somewhere in the middle?
I think I'm definitely optimistic. It's important to note that this is all very long term. So even now after years of, all of the shapers of the State Street Plan in very long meetings, this is still kind of looking into the future, a ways. So even though we have this nice, lovely grand Paseo framework, flat and flexible, that people are kind of rallying behind, um, it's still far in the future. So I'm definitely optimistic that it stays that way. But, with time comes the opportunity for more people to throw their opinions in, maybe some of the opposite opinions as well. But I really like the way that it's headed. I like the people that are involved in it. I think it's a lovely mix of older generations, younger generations, people with lots of different jobs, families, lifestyles, etc. And I think that's really important.
No, you're optimistic because you're young and you might actually be around to see the results of this when you're my age. But there were five. It was organized around several of the groups that have been involved, and you had the architects from the Grumbine firm and Friends of State Street. Then you had Dave Davis and Strongtown, and then I found it interesting that you kind of tacked the mayor on the end because he was sort of the only dissenting voice in all of this. What groups did you get, or who did you get to interview on the piece?
Yeah, so Strong Towns was kind of my group. So shout out to Ryan for doing a lot of the legwork on that piece, especially throwing on the mayor's dissent at the end. Um, but Strong Towns was a really interesting group to speak with. You don't see a lot of young people getting involved at this level. So I think even though they have a lovely mix of like I said, age groups and occupations, etc. They're mostly a lot of young people that are just passionate about it. They want to stay in Santa Barbara. They want to see things to fruition. Um, they have a lot of energy and a lot of zhuzh, and they want to see things kind of work out and stay sustainable and
Yeah,
good.
far be it from me to be the skunk at the garden party, but one thing, the photographs were beautiful of all the people, but I wondered, Alejandra Gutierrez, who we're going to talk about a little bit, has been critical of the whole State Street situation because she says, it's excluding basically her constituents, Latinos and stuff. And there were an awful lot of white faces in those photographs. Did you have any sense about if that was an issue that people were still thinking about, or it was has sort of gone by the by, or what?
Yeah, so something about these groups is that they're all able to show up to a Board of Supervisors meeting on Tuesday, during working hours. Um, so that definitely skews the population of people that are very involved in this project, is it is generally people who can, take an hour off of work, maybe they're working from home. Um, to make their voice heard. And definitely the pictures, I agree with you, were lots of white people. And I think that's important to note as well. Um, and to that, I would say I think a lot of the groups, especially, Friends of State Street, especially Strong Towns, they're always looking for people to join. And so I think while at the moment, your point definitely stands, I think that there's still opportunities to get involved and to get, a more diverse population in the mix here. The groups are not exclusive. A lot of them are not. So I think it's important just to, stay optimistic, like you said earlier on, that, getting other people's voices heard is definitely a part of the discussion.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, well, we'll circle back on State Street when we talk about next cover story this week. But I want to ask Callie, because there's been a lot going on at the Santa Barbara Unified School District this week. And speaking of optimistic, Hilda Maldonado, the superintendent, had her annual State of the Schools uh, event. And she seemed to put a very optimistic spin on the latest test results, which you characterized as squishy. Callie, what's that about?
I didn't characterize it as squishy. Bill Banning characterized it
Oh,
as squishy. He called it squishy because he said
but
that
you're the one that picked the quote, Callie. So.
that's true. That's true. He said that the data can't fully reflect what's happening in the schools because it's numbers, it's not people. And he said that this is a business of humanity, and a couple bar graphs don't show you like the teachers who are breaking their backs to help these students. So yeah, but I just like that he called it squishy, to be honest.
Yeah. And the scores actually were a little bit discouraging. I mean, maybe they went up a little bit, but it's something like less than 40% of kids, are at grade level for math, and only about 50% for reading. Did she talk at all about the change in the curriculum in terms of how they're sort of pivoting to the science of reading strategy for teaching kids reading?
Uh, Maldonado didn't really touch on it, but Denise Alvarado, their director of education, did. And she highlighted the same things that we've kind of been hearing over the past year about teachers taking learning walks and professional learning communities where they collaborate and talk about methods to implement and um, that kind of thing. They also just adopted letters, which is like this like really like highly acclaimed research-based program for teaching early childhood educators how to teach kids literacy. But they only bought it for 40 staff members. So it's like all preschool teachers, and what the like literacy advocates in town are saying is that it needs to be much more like robustly like given out to teachers. Like it can't just be like 40 teachers. It has to be, all of the teachers who are interfacing with kids who are learning how to read.
Right.
Like kindergartners, first grade, elementary school should all know how to do this. So it's a small drop in the bucket for sure.
Yeah, a long way to go. And of course, there's elections for the school board for what, 3 districts, correct? Um, have you had your forum yet? Did I miss? I didn't miss your forum, did
You
I?
missed my forum, Jerry.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was looking for you in the crowd the entire time, and I didn't.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So how'd it go? Who shined and who didn't?
I think it went well. I think Sunita Beal and Celeste Caffrey shined, and that probably had a little bit to do with the fact that their opponents did not show up. But
I was actually having coffee with their opponents at the time. No, that's not true.
and then there were some questionable moments as well. I would say, yeah, but I would say Sunita and Celeste definitely shined.
And
And
is Celeste running in the open seat for the open seat?
what do you mean?
Well, isn't it the Banning's running and
Oh, yes, yeah. So Celeste is running for the open seat. Yes.
yeah, okay. All
Mhm.
right. All right, fair enough. Josh, you've been uncharacteristically quiet. But you've been writing, you've been churning out your dutiful pieces on the city council races, the three races in the first, second, and third district. Is it your sense that all the incumbents are going to win, or there's still a lot of question in that first district seat?
Um, by the way, I just wanted to shamelessly promote that on my show, I have Tony Becerra, who's running for District 3, and we did almost an hour of every question you'd ever want to ask him. So be sure to watch Santa Barbara Talks. I know Nick will want to watch that.
I got a mailer from the chamber yesterday. They endorsed Tony.
They did. He also got endorsed by the Firefighters Association, which is a big deal.
That was interesting.
But yeah, so it's District 1 and District 3. They're close-ish, I think. You've got a very strong, powerful attempt to unseat the District 1 incumbent, Alejandro Gutierrez. We're talking about the Democratic Party. We're talking about activists within the Democratic Party, people who believe that she should not be on council for a variety of reasons. Some of it personal, some of it professional, saying she took off a year and a half, 2 years in the middle. Alejandro Gutierrez has said that she's had a very serious health problem. She has not disclosed publicly what it was, but it's, she says she's got all the proof of it, and she's very offended that people would be attacking a woman for being out ill for a very serious issue. But they say she's missed a bunch of meetings, showed up late to meetings, etc. And they also feel like she says she's going to do things and then doesn't do them, that she's unreliable. So there's an effort to get her opponent, Wendy Santa Maria, in. And Wendy Santa Maria is an outstanding, energetic candidate. She speaks well. She's very motivated, and she can move people when she talks.
Speaks fast.
Yes, but sort of the criticism of her is that, she's lived in Santa Barbara since 2018. Gutierrez has been here her entire life. People say she's a one issue candidate, which is rent control. And there's a lot of question as whether somebody who's only been here a little bit of time and is very much aligned with the tenants group and the activists and labor, if they fully can represent the district. So that's sort of the objective analysis of where the campaign is.
Yeah, because Alejandra really comes down on the side of the landlords, or the mom and pop landlords in any case.
Yeah, she has a lot of support from the property owners. She's against rent control. It's a very fierce, personal situation people have, attitude toward her. I don't know. I mean, I've been thinking Wendy was going to win. That's not an endorsement. That's not saying that I think she should, but just my analysis of the campaign, it feels like there's more energy behind her than Alejandra. But everyone I talk to tells me, Josh, you're wrong. Alejandra Gutierrez is going to win. The district's more in line with her values. So I guess we'll have to find out on election day. There are pros and cons to each candidate. I think the biggest objective criticism of Alejandra Gutierrez is where you been, and and it's been a lot of stuff that she hasn't been to, but again, she hasn't come out and
well, she's certainly winning the signs, the competition for signs. I see her signs everywhere. I have a lot.
She also put out a press release saying she had $4,000 worth of signs stolen, which is unreal. If that has happened, that's like a national story. I mean, who has that much signs out?
But don't you? I mean, I have to say I sympathize with her about the illness thing. I mean, I think anybody who's had a serious illness and has kind of had it just cleave your life in two, and you have to withdraw from all your normal activities, it is offensive for people to be dumping on you. I don't.
I think the problem, Jerry, is, Bob, as soon as I thought of the MA, when he was on the council, he sort of went missing in action for a long time because he had some, 14-pound tumor or some huge tumor growing in his gut.
Oh yeah, God,
And
that's terrible. Margaux,
But
you would have loved that story. You could have covered that one. That was.
But he didn't talk about it. He wouldn't explain it. It's my private business. But unfortunately, when you are a public citizen and you are not showing up as present as you used to be, at least in Babatunde's case, people want to know, where are you? What's going on? And it's not an unreasonable question. Nobody has to divulge the gory details of your, personal issues, but I think the public does have hey, I'm going to be operating on 1/3 gas or whatever the reality is. And I think part of the problem is that these stories about Alejandra being missing were circulating before she was sick. And so it's not as sort of black and white.
I mean, basically, the critics don't believe Alejandra Gutierrez. They do not
They don't
believe
believe
she's
she
telling.
was sick.
They believe she was sick, but they don't believe she was sick for the entirety of time when she was not attending meetings. And these are not just city council meetings, because I reported, that Alejandra Gutierrez was absent for the vote at various things. They're talking about committee meetings, they're talking about staff meetings, a whole bunch of different meetings. But the bottom line is they don't believe her. Alejandro Gutierrez says it's a personal matter and this is why. And so there's this gap. If she's not going to tell the world why, she's going to have to deal with this criticism, because how long did it last? And I'm not saying that she should, but honestly, if I were her strategist, or like, I'd tell her to lean into it. Tell people what the issue was. And then it kind of takes away from that whole criticism, but she doesn't want to do that at all. And, Nick's right. She shouldn't have to, but the bottom line is they just don't believe her. And that's what's the issue.
I have a theory. I have a theory as a feminist new age guy. I have a theory that this is a gender issue. And I'm curious, Margaux and Callie, whether you are sympathetic to Alejandra on this question of saying, she wants her privacy about a health issue and she's offended by it, or do you agree with the sort of misogynistic view of Nick and Josh that
well, it's been a whole week since I've been called misogynistic. Thanks, Jerry.
What do you? No, I'm serious. What do you think? Just real quick, Margaux and.
Erase the number on the whiteboard, Josh.
Do you sympathize with her or not, Margaux?
I think I'm right in the middle. I think to Nick's point, if you would hold a man accountable to the same thing, you should hold a woman accountable to the same thing. If, when you're in a public position like that, you kind of open yourself up to that scrutiny, male or female. And you're opening yourself up to the possibility that the public's going to want to know what's going on in your private life. So while I sympathize with her and we don't know exactly what was going on, so it's kind of hard to, test the waters here a little bit, but if she's getting criticized for it, I understand why.
You think she should come out and address it in a more direct and detailed way, Callie?
I don't think like Josh said, I don't think she should have to. And there is a part of me that's like, oh, do people not believe her because she's a woman and she's saying these things? But I think it really is. She's a public servant. People want to know what she's been up to. I think it would only help her if she did come forward and said exactly what's been going on. Maybe not in all of the gory details, but just letting people know. I think that would only help her. Obviously, she shouldn't have to. It's not fair.
So that theory is.
Wait, hold on, Jerry. Hold on. Don't interrupt me while I'm interrupting you. You heard Callie's point. We had a mayor named Marty Blum. You might remember her, and she had breast cancer, and she came out and it sidelined her for a bit, and she talks about it, and she talks about it really openly, and she was really praised for it in the moment. And a lot of people who had breast cancer said, "Thank you very much. I feel less alone, and I'm glad you helped bring this issue out into a more public way." And I think Marty played it very differently. She embraced it, and I think she did a public service for other people who had that same problem.
Yeah, I guess it's a matter of,
She heard your allegations of misogyny there too.
well, yeah, no, I'm just thinking when I got sick in 2007 and we were all in the middle of that mess at the news press, and I I wrote a very detailed piece for the Independent about it, including the size of my spleen. So, I think it really depends on, how people feel about their own privacy. All right, enough
It
about
should be noted though that Alejandro Gutierrez has the endorsement of the Democratic women of Santa Barbara County.
that's a
And
very good
they
point.
they say they reviewed the meetings. It was 7 council meetings. They support her. They don't have an issue with this. So a lot of this is stuff we all talk about. At the end of the day, what are the voters of the East Side? What do they care about? And I
Yeah,
think
do
that's
they
the
even
big
know that she
disconnect.
missed the meeting?
Right.
Well, so the damn women proves my theory, but Margaux and Callie have undercut it. So, okay, I'm gonna stick to it. All right, enough about that. Nick, your cover story, really, this week about our friend Roger Durling and his efforts to revitalize the theater. That's going to have a lot to do with Margot's optimism about State Street.
Well, yeah, I think we've been talking about State Street for 3 years, and largely cars versus bikes and pedestrians against all sort of terms. And this is the first time where, oh, people talk about, oh, we have to activate State Street or we have to program State Street. What the hell does that even mean? So Roger Durling, who was on the State Street Advisory Committee and stalked off in disgust after in great frustration.
Roger runs the film festival.
Right, Roger Durling, who has run the film festival for the last 23 years, he has taken over the lease of the Fiesta 5 movie theater. He's going to invest, he and the film festival are going to invest $15 million in getting new seats, new sound system, and new projectors. And they have 5 different theaters, and they're going to program. One is going to be first run independent films, American. One's going to be first run foreign films. One's going to be documentaries. One's going to be retrospectives, and one's going to be family films and animation. And it's going to, they're going to program the hell out of it. And Roger has been, obviously doing the film festival, and now he's been doing the Riviera Theater for, I think, about the last 7 or 8 years, and really has brought it to a new life. The owners of the Fiesta 5 Theater for the last 47 years have been the Corwin family, and they are in bankruptcy. And they went to the city and said, hey, could you give me a break on the rent? And the city says, well, you're already past due on a lot of rent that you haven't paid. And on the other hand, we got this other guy who's claims he's going to raise $15 million and he's going to turn this thing upside down. If you look at the 900 block of State Street, it's a dead zone for about, a large number of the storefronts are really out and empty. You have the Apple store, which is a really big tenant. But other than that, there's a lot of vacancies. So they're really hoping that if Roger does what he has done elsewhere, this is going to be a happening place, and it will define what it means to activate the space.
I mean, it really does seem like it has that potential. Everybody should read Nick's cover story about. But I'm curious that, Roger has such a commitment to like the movies and going to the movies, but are people still going to go to the movies or not? Or they just stay home and watch Netflix? I don't know. I love to go to the movies. I go to like matinees by myself, and I like to be like, there's 2 people in the theater.
He has it broken up. Each theater has different genre movies, and I think Santa Barbara is a smart community, and I think they are going to go. I mean, because they're talking. He's got independent films. He's got foreign films. He's got local films. He's got some first run stuff. He's got stuff for kids, and Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a total hit. I mean, I'm excited about it just by listening to him talk at the council meeting. I think people are going to go.
I think people, and if you look at the Riviera, which really kind of caters to the farmers market demographic, I think he's really turned that. I mean, that place was a dead zone up there, and he has completely changed it. And part of it's his programming, but it's also it has a great sound system, great seats, and I think if you've ever been to the Fiesta in a while, it was sort of the on its last legs. It was
Oh yeah, no,
worn
it's
out.
got like the sticky soda on the floor.
All that, it's like where guys would go to see bad movies because they like to see bad movies.
Yeah.
That was sort of the theater, that was his specialty. And it was just depressing. And I think Roger can bring I think he's going to be challenged. Raising 15 million is not easy, and then bringing the crowds isn't easy. But I think if anybody has a track record that would make you want to bet on it, it would be him in the film festival.
Yeah, that's what it was really one of the interesting things about your piece was how he actually got all these actors and to come to Santa Barbara in the middle of winter because he understood the strategy that they needed to do a little pre-Oscars campaign and stuff. So he's a smart fellow. But Margaux and Callie, as representing the 4.5 billion people on the planet under the age of 40, do you go to the movies or do you just you watch Netflix and chill?
No.
I haven't been to the movies in a long time. But I grew up in a town with no movie theaters, so it was not
Not a
it was
thing.
never a big thing for me.
I don't have time to go to the movies.
No, you don't go to
I
the
have to pay rent, Jerry.
Popcorn's expensive these
Popcorn
days.
is expensive.
No, it's
Movies
expensive.
are expensive.
But if you go to the matinee, it's cheap. It's you get a deal. Plus, I get the senior discount. So
I don't have the daylight to go to a matinee.
all right, let's moving along. Hey, Margaux, you I don't know, you must have got the short straw over there or something to have to write about this Sable offshore story, which is by far the most complicated Rube Goldberg multi-agency overlapping jurisdictional issue there is. But it looks like they're out there doing work, and then they get this stop work order from the Coastal Commission, and they just ignored it. From what I could tell from your story, is that what's going on?
That's what it looked like to me too. But they were working about 5 days after the notice of violation. It's really unclear whether, there was just a missed email or if there was, some more blatant ignorance. That type of thing is very hard to decipher.
This is the pipeline that caused the Refugio spill some time ago, and there's been lawsuits and hearings, and nobody at the county will talk about it. What do you get when you try to get somebody from the county to comment on this?
A lot of agencies, the county included, but more as well, have really battered down the hatches. I think everyone involved is under a lot of scrutiny, a lot of legal scrutiny. I feel like there's lawsuits and legal notices and violations being thrown around left and right. And I think people are just getting kind of worried that they're going to get caught in something that they don't want to get caught in. It's really a big issue of the environmental groups versus, the oil guys. And that's
So nobody wants to be in the position of having to give a deposition.
Well, the county Sable has sued the county and saying that you have no jurisdiction to say anything about us. And the county said, oops, I guess you're right, we don't. And there's a really good question whether or not that's true. And the county won't even talk about that. The county won't. Sable is saying we aren't going to build a new pipeline, which was initially the plan. We're going to use the old pipeline. But there was this whole protection system that was built into the old pipelines that would save it from corrosion. Now we learned that that system doesn't work, so they're not going to put that back in, but they're not telling us what they're going to put in its place. So the sort of, it's like driving without a seatbelt and an airbag. So we've discovered that the seatbelt and the airbags that were supposed to work didn't. The pipeline spilled all over the place. We know all about that in 2015. And now they're going to use the old pipelines. They said, we're just going to fix up the old ones, but we're not going to tell you what special corrosion protection we're going to use. So nobody at the county seems to know, and nobody at the county is willing to say if they do know. And it's a very frustrating situation for the public to be in, because the reason we had the spill in the first place in 2015 was because of what? Corrosion. So it's not like we're just looking for issues to get upset about because we like to be upset at oil companies. There's actually a track record of a big problem that occurred because of this.
Hey, Margaux, when you write about this story, does Nick give you a lot of guidance?
Yeah, he's definitely around. Nick gives me a lot of questions. There's a mix of guidance and questions, a lot of which have to go unanswered for the reasons that Nick just said. But he's raising all the questions that the public would raise as well. To the point of protection against corrosion, to the point of any public hearings, or who gets to be involved in the process, bringing oil back to the Central Coast.
Yeah. And what is your thought bubble when Nick gets really annoying with his questions? What do you?
That hasn't happened yet.
You don't
Am I
have
gonna
to
get
answer
fired for
that.
this?
That was just a rhetorical question, really. All right. Speaking of things that are annoying, Josh, Rick Caruso, the big LA developer, was in town at the county planning commission pitching this expansion of retail space at the Miramar, which has outraged many people in Montecito. But he's such a sort of an engaging guy. I mean, he's such a good salesman. What was the takeaway from his appearance at the planning commission?
Well, Rick Caruso, he's very charismatic, he's very charming, and he gives the presentations himself, which you don't often see with these big developer projects. And he has his son, Justin Caruso. He's got a whole group of public relations professionals who are working with him. It's a top-notch presentation that they're giving. And essentially, they're trying to expand the Miramar to add 26 housing units, affordable housing units, and also then 8 that are below market rate. And they want to build 17,500 of luxury retail boutique shops.
Square feet, 17,500 square feet.
Yeah, of luxury shops. They already have some there. Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop store is there, and others. This is the kind of thing where you get a bag for $5,000 and a jeans for several $1,000s.
Callie shops there a lot on her way
on the independent wage. Yes, for sure.
On the way to the movie theater.
With the popcorn, yeah.
Eating popcorn out of a $5,000 bag, in fact.
So it's like a jam-packed room. They're making this presentation. It's kind of interesting because you've got the church, All Saints by the Sea, who are next door, and they're upset for a few reasons. And they say that this housing is going to block their view of the mountains that you can see from one of the rooms. They have these bay window, this like cool little three window looking out in the mountains. And so they're upset about that. They want the housing on the other side. And then there's some neighbors who are upset about all this traffic. They think Caruso's just building the housing to mask the financial benefits of the retail sales. So all of this collided into one room. What was amazing was, I showed up at the county and there's this, I thought, a coffee bar there. I'm like, oh, the county like outsourced some little coffee bar on the street. I can get coffee here. And then I realized, I look a little closer, Caruso had catered the meeting. You had BLTs, you had kale salad,
BLTs.
you had designer water, you had fruit, you had coffee, and this was all free.
Been there.
It was a big spread and like anybody could have it or just the
Anyone could have it, and I almost took one because I have really no shame when it comes to food.
Did
But
they have any freeze wrapped in prosciutto?
do they have what? Oh no, nothing like that. But I didn't open the box. I did take a bunch of pictures. But basically, he's trying to
You
just
didn't get a
engage you.
coffee?
No, I did not get coffee. I instead decided to pay $7 for coffee somewhere else, which shows you my strong ethics, Jerry. But I wouldn't, I wouldn't, it was just an amazing scene. So professional. The neighbors are outraged. All Saints is outraged. And, this whole thing is happening because Doss Williams wants to be able to review it before he leaves office if it goes to appeal on the Board of Supervisors.
Because he's in Caruso's pocket.
Well, I would never make such an allegation, Jerry, but he is a supporter of this housing project because it's affordable housing. And they were going to try to skip the Montecito Planning Commission. They did. They held the first meeting at the county. Now they're going to go back to the MPC. Then they're going to go to the county. And if it gets appealed, it'll be the board in December for some huge dynamic meeting. But I wouldn't bet against Caruso. That guy seems like what he wants.
So what is he? He needs
Hold on, Jerry. Wait a second.
No, I just want to understand the process. So he needs the planning commission to approve on a majority vote and then it goes to the soups or?
Yeah, the planning commission's the decider, but it can be appealed to the Board of Supervisors. And a lot of the neighbors want Roy Lee to be able to vote on this, including Joe Cole, who we all know very well. He wants this delayed until Roy Lee's in office.
But Mike Cooney is on the commission?
He's the first district commissioner. Yeah.
What does he think about it?
We don't know yet. There were no deliberations. I guess he hinted he has some concerns about it, but we don't really know.
I'm sorry, Nick. My mansplaining interrupted your mansplaining.
Oh, yeah. There was a real bombshell that Caruso dropped where he had a text message from somebody at the church basically outlining a strategy, how they would meet with Caruso and come up with all these, slow him down by trying to negotiate with him. And then at the end of it, they would oppose it and appeal it to the board anyway. And it was, if it was as presented, it would have been a conspiracy to engage in bad faith negotiations. And I think based on reporting we've done, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And so it didn't hurt that Caruso, aside from the kale salad and the BLTs, had this text making the Episcopal Church, Catholics without guilt, look bad.
Okay.
It should be noted, Rick Caruso, when he testified this bombshell, he said, I was driving when I received this text, and it happens when you accidentally send a text to the wrong person. I pulled over, I stopped my car, I texted my team, and I said, all negotiations with All Saints are now over. It's like this dramatic little pitch. And, I don't know. Apparently, somebody sent the wrong text to Caruso, which is
a lot of clout in that church. So they've been all right. We got to get out of here, but let's do a real quick lightning round. Callie, breaking news: the western burrowing owl, which I've been keeping a close eye on the critter beat, is now an official endangered species.
Not yet. It's a candidate to be an official endangered species, but in the meantime, it does have all the protections that would be granted under the California Endangered Species Act. So now the commission just has to vote on whether they want it to be threatened or
who has to vote. Who's
here? I think it's the Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Okay, and then Trump will undo that as soon as he gets in office. All right, hey Margaux, you got to cover Tim Walz, the Democratic vice presidential candidate, when he made a brief stop to pick up $2 million in Montecito, is what I heard. I don't know if that's true or not. Was that the first time you got to cover a national political candidate? And how was it when some knucklehead gave you the wrong a date when he was going to be arriving?
Yes, it was my first time. And being given the wrong date just made me more excited for when it was the correct
Did he
time.
had does he has Secret Service, right?
Yes, lots of it. A lot of security around him at the moment. Yeah, but he spoke well. His remarks were crisp to the point. I think he did really well in that setting, and yeah, he sounded great.
Whose house was he at?
Oh gosh, I forgot their names, but I wrote it down in the story.
All right. Yeah, I can't remember either. So that's all right. But yeah, that how many people were there? Did he really raise $2 million? I don't know. That's
I
what
wouldn't be surprised. I saw about 100 people, but I know that other numbers have been thrown around, and there might be more people there than I saw. Crowd sizes are a hard thing to estimate. Um, I'm sure it was 2 million. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was far more than that.
did you have to get a credential? Did the Secret Service push you around? What was that?
Yeah, they sniffed me with the dogs and metal detectored me, and they were 4 feet away from me at all times, and everyone else. But all things
You
considered,
look like a threatening person.
I was about to say, I hope I'm non-threatening, and maybe that's why they stayed 2 feet away from me instead of one.
Were
So
you
yeah,
the only local reporter that got in there?
yes, I was the only print reporter that was in the fundraiser. I think there were a couple photographers from national.
Nice, good resourcefulness. Nick, the homeless issue was at the county. They don't know what to do with this new Supreme Court ruling, huh?
Yeah, the Supreme Court ruled that it basically liberated local governments to rouse homeless people who are sleeping in public. Before, for a number of years, the rule was you had to have to have a shelter bed that you could offer somebody to go to before you would house them. Now, the LA Times has stories where different communities down there are, if somebody shows up with a pillow and a blanket, that is grounds to have them move on. And so in Santa Barbara, the rule that I'm alluding to here really prompted local governments to invest as meaningfully and as creatively as they knew how into creating new space for homeless people. And in Santa Barbara, they did a lot. I mean, they really outdid themselves. And now the question is, well, if there isn't a gun to your head saying you have to do this, and you can't hassle people unless you have a bed space, now that rule is out the window, what do you do? The big issue is, there were a lot of big issues, but one of the supervisors were talking about we should go after people who are sleeping in their cars.
So what did they do? They just kicked the can down the road?
Well, and that was, everybody said, well, great. What you'll do is you're going to move them from one neighborhood to the next. And, Josh Williams made the point very strongly, and I think actually very powerfully. Look, if you think there's a lot of homeless people now, wait till you start harassing people who are living in their cars. You're going to have so many more people in the street. And the real question nobody has the answer for is, well, what do you do with them? Where do they go? And there isn't really an answer.
All right. Well, a rare instance when I have to agree with Josh Williams. And then Josh, finally, talk about burying the lead. You had the most important story of the week. This new donut shop that's opening out in Goleta. Did you see this? It's gonna be open 24 hours. They got Oh yeah, they got like all kinds of donuts, and they got a whole full coffee bar and
I want you guys to see this. My t-shirt is a bicycle made with 2 donuts.
Josh, what's the name of it? I mean, and you can work in there. They have like the work tables and stuff, huh?
Yeah, I can hit slow doco on my way back from Planet Fitness. That's the new excitement that I have. It's right in the Target shopping center, and it's a San Luis Obispo-based donut company, and they have more than 100 different donuts, daily styles, and then it's really designed for studying. So UCSB students, City College students, there's a big lounge area, or, anyone can go work there. So we'll see if it's a success. I did
What is it
sample
called
a couple
again?
of the donuts. What?
What is it called?
It's Slow Dough Co. San Luis
Okay.
Obispo Donut Company.
Do they have savory? They have savory donuts.
I guess so. I don't know. They have all kinds of delicious donuts. So,
All right,
they have the
Margaux.
maple, which is what I like. So that's
Margaux,
all
you're
I
the
look
only
at.
student we have left here. We're counting on you for a full.
I'm going.
There's
I'm
100
okay.
donuts. It's gonna take a long time.
Well, yeah, but you can sit there. It's open 24 hours. That's the other thing.
I'm not open 24 hours.
What?
I like to sleep. I'm not going in there for 24 hours.
Well,
I'll
after,
just-
all right, when
I'll
you
let
leave, after you leave the movie, go to the.
Okay, with my popcorn and my 100 donuts
And your $15,000
and my $500 bag.
Yeah.
All right, all right.
Time to end the show, Jerry.
I think we've covered just about everything there is. Nick Welsh, Josh Molina, Margaux Lovely, and Callie Fausey. Thank you so much. Thank you all for watching. And we will see you next time on Newsmakers.
Thank you.
All righty.